Yeah, so happy to have Emily James on. Thank you again for taking time out of your day, sitting
Thank
down
you.
talking with me. Appreciate you. I think the easiest place to start is maybe just a little bit of an origin story, so to speak. Has making music kind of always been the goal in life, or
Yeah, so I've been singing basically since I was able to start speaking, and it's for my family in the kitchen. Wicked, the musical, like that soundtrack, I knew it front to back from when I was like 3 or 4 years old. Um, so it was a big year for me this year.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But yeah, I was always kind of performing, and then when I was about 10, I started writing my own songs. I had started taking piano lessons when I was 5, and I think from the moment I started writing songs, that's when I knew I wanted to do it as a full time. Like I was like, there's no other thing I want to do.
Uh-huh.
It just kind of gave me this feeling that I'd never had before.
Yeah. So kind of, I mean, obviously then I would assume music was big in your house growing up. What kind of music were your parents playing? And then like what kind of music even, so, big into Wicked, but what kind of artists, kind of shaped your soundtrack as a kid?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a big mix of things, I'd say. There was like classic rock, there was like Fleetwood Mac, there was Billy Joel, Stevie Wonder, a lot of Bruce Springsteen since we're from New York originally.
Yeah.
So a lot of just like really great storytelling and songwriting. And so I think I always valued that, like telling a great story with a song.
Yeah, I think so. You started as a songwriter, and I think from what I've read, you've lived in LA, Nashville, New York. I think pretty safe to say they all have unique songwriting styles per city. Do you kind of carry a specific one, or you think you've kind of blended all of those writing styles together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like uh I feel like I definitely did take on the tone of each city while I was there. So when I moved to Nashville, I was about 16, and even the way I sang kind of started to take on a little bit of a country twang,
Uh-huh.
and that wasn't on purpose at all. It was just kind of a result of my surroundings. And then going to LA, my music became a little more pop leaning. Um, and I didn't start collaborating, like co-writing, until I moved to LA. So I think that was part of that influence as well. Um, but yeah, it is cool to see how there's a different kind of songwriting energy in each city. I feel like now I live in New York, and it's a very kind of raw um, vibe, and just very much about like I feel like authenticity and a little like grittier, which is cool.
Yeah, so you kind of talk about being super authentic. So your little bio on YouTube says everything you need to know is about me is in these songs.
Hmm.
Um, so are all of your songs written based out of personal experience?
Yeah, I would say certain ones are more true than others. Like there are certain ones where I kind of exaggerate the truth or take a bit of poetic license, but um, I found from early on when I would write things that just were completely fabricated, if there was nothing rooting me to that truth, I couldn't really resonate with the song, and so then I wouldn't really like stick with it. Versus now, there always needs to be like a seedling of truth in it
Uh,
for me to um, continue to resonate with it. And I think the other interesting part that I've noticed is I'll write a song initially about something, and then 3 years go by, and if I'm still performing the song, it has taken on a whole nother meaning, and it feels like it's about something else, which
yeah.
I think that's kind of the beauty of music, is how dynamic it can be in terms of how you interpret it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too, like, I think one of the things that I've heard resonate most with artists is like once, you write it for you, but then everybody who listens to it is going to take on a new meaning too as well.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about music, honestly, is like one song can mean something to me and something completely different to you.
Yeah.
So you released a new single recently, Under the Influence.
Hmm.
Maybe just talk about the little seedlings in that story and the take on love that it offers.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the second single off of my new EP, which is called Summer Nostalgia. And the kind of vision behind this EP is each song is part of a story. So the first song I put out is called Suburbia, and that's kind of like it's kind of like if you're watching a movie and I'm like, I'm gonna tell you this tale, and this is kind of the journey we're gonna go on. And then Under the Influence is kind of the first vignette of that story. So it's this kind of friends to lovers, will they, won't they kind of song, which I have found myself in a few times. And I think it's just like, it's my favorite trope. I just think it's, um, just that like knowing somebody and then the feelings shifting and the chaos that comes with that. So
Mhm.
that's what that song is about.
Yeah, so you mentioned like it kind of wanting to be a story. When you're writing EPs or albums or anything like that, are you trying to make it this one cohesive story? I feel like that's a little lost nowadays with everybody, so many singles come out, and like I don't want to say the art of the album is lost, but it
Mm,
feels like a lot of storytelling gets kind of missed in these just singles.
yeah, no, I get that. I think it's usually not on purpose while I'm writing the songs. It's kind of like with this EP, half of it was written in LA and half of it was written in London. And I kind of had these songs and kept being pulled to write this like songs about this similar story structure, and it wasn't until I kind of stepped away and was like listening to them and I was like, oh, these all kind of connect in a really serendipitous way. So I usually that's how I approach projects typically is I kind of write a ton, get my feelings out, and then there's usually a common thread between them and it's like, oh, that's what that was supposed to be about.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned too, like you wrote some of this in London. What was your experience with music in London? I'm always curious about like the international music scene and yeah, what was it like?
Yeah, it was awesome. I basically I was there for 4 months collectively. I did like 2 month stints, and everybody there is just so wonderful, so talented. I was basically in a session every single day, which isn't normally how I operate, but there were just like so many people I wanted to work with, and I wanted to make the most of my time there. And um, yeah, it was interesting too to see kind of the differences of how people approach sessions in LA versus in London, and just inspiring to be in a completely different place. And that kind of influenced the writing as well.
Yeah. I mean, for me it's like I mean, obviously the sounds coming out like, international sounds a lot different than a lot of the music being made now in the States, but it's always interesting to see what kind of takes hold, coming from there versus coming from here. So
Yeah.
you've been making music too now, or releasing music, I should say. You obviously been making music since you were 5, but releasing music for close to a decade now.
Yeah, it's
How do you
wild.
think, right? How do you think your music has kind of changed over the years? Has your style or the way you approach it changed, and if so, how?
Mm, I think my writing has always come from the same place. It's always kind of this um inner place that I try not to force, and I just kind of listen to what what wants to be written. Um but I think my my production style has changed. I produce kind of like half of my stuff myself, and then half of it is collaborations. And I think I'm just more um, secure in how I want things to sound. I think when I was, 16 and making an EP, I was I wasn't sure like when I could speak up, and I had a vision for the project, and fortunately the people I worked with were completely wanted me to have as much input as I wanted to give it. And um I think now I feel more confident in voicing my opinions, and also just like when I'm producing something myself, knowing and trusting my vision for something and knowing how to get it there.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like obviously in today's age, social media is like the feels like the marketing role for artists.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a mega star, and even then you're still doing it.
Yeah.
How do you kind of find yourself staying true to the sound you want to be, even though there's so much of this push towards like 10, 15-second snippets of songs that you need to go viral or whatever to kind of make
Yeah.
it.
I know. I think it's been a journey. Like I wasn't a huge fan of having to do TikToks and Reels and all of that originally. But then it just got to a point where it's like, this is the way it is, and you can kind of choose to embrace it, or you can keep like butting heads with it.
Mhm.
So I think at the end of the day, it's like finding the way that it's the most fun for you and the most natural, because people, especially this day and age, when we're consuming so much content, I feel like everybody's just so smart and perceptive of like what feels real and what feels put on. So like if you feel like you're putting it on, then other people are going to feel that too.
Yeah.
So just kind of learning how to thread that, like we said, authenticity into my approach of, you know, um, getting people to hear the songs has been the best way for me. And that's kind of like, you know, I get my ideas across the best or communicate the best by like writing things down.
Uh-huh.
I journal a lot. You know, um, that's just how I process things. So I'm more of that approach rather than like a speaking to the camera type
Right.
person.
Yeah.
So
Are you a big consumer of social media, or are you try to keep away from it as much as possible?
I try to keep away from it. But like also you like kind of need to be tapped into what's happening. So there's definitely a balance, but just kind of setting those limits, and um, knowing that like it's okay to just kind of scroll and enjoy and laugh at things. Like the other night, I was just like sitting and scrolling on TikTok and watch it. Right now, the trend is like the I'm so hungry I could eat. And I
Okay.
was just like
Yeah.
losing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like it can be fun. And then you just have to know when to be like, all right, that's enough.
Right. Yeah, and I think too, especially with artists, like you're 100% right in the authenticity piece because like there's artists that I follow who like they make some of the most outrageous content, but it's definitely who they are. And then they're like it's
Right.
like super outrageous, and there's people who are super honest, and it's working for both of them.
Yeah.
So I find it very interesting I do believe authenticity matters so much.
Yeah.
And it definitely people have really become attuned to it. It feels like you're 100% right.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you noticed that with your like with creating content yourself?
Yeah, especially like so when I started doing all this, it was very much like I was doing everything I wanted to do with it. Obviously, as it got bigger, you always have that pull to do things that maybe you're not 100% with.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of the nature of the beast a little bit. And it definitely happened. I definitely fell into that a little bit, but more so recently, trying to get back into what makes me feel good and what. Because even if as long as I feel good about it, I mean, as much as like this is a lot of what I do now and like
Yeah.
how I make a living, I can't like I don't want to sell my soul for it kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm like perfectly fine going back to work if I need to like whatever slumming at the
Yeah.
warehouse like I used to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little bit of a push and pull, but we're back on the good side of things, I feel like.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So music for me, at least as a listener, has always been super healing. It was a way for me to like kind of hide myself from trauma as a kid,
Mm.
and I think as listeners we find this like cool way to have it heal. I'm kind of curious though, as a songwriter, how do you think music kind of heals a little bit?
Mm. I think for me, it's like how I process my emotions. It's kind of like my main source of therapy, I feel. And then, you know, you could just leave it at that and then not release any music and just be like, this is just for me. But I think that as somebody releasing music, kind of like what we talked about before, once it's out, it's not mine anymore. And um, I want people to kind of interpret things their own way and um, have it heal them in their own ways. And that's like truly what motivates me to keep doing it is, people reaching out and sending messages that say, like this is getting me through a really tough time. Like your music is what's keeping me going. Like that means everything to me.
Yeah.
And um, I think that is like the most important aspect of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there a bit of, on release day, like a bit of anxiety that comes along with, obviously you like it, you feel good about it, or is everybody else gonna like it?
Yeah, I think it's like not even so much of are people gonna like it, but I always just feel strange on release days where maybe it's kind of like that where it's like, okay, now this isn't mine anymore. It's almost like
Right.
a slight grief.
Oh,
But it's combined with excitement and just like especially the longer you've lived with a song on your own, like the concept of other people hearing it is kind of weird, but um yeah, it's definitely a lot of mixed emotion. I'll talk to my mom on release day. I'm like, I don't know why, I just like feel really weird today. She's like,
right.
this is always how you feel.
Every
Like,
day, every time. Yeah. That's so funny. Is
yeah.
there is there a song that you've like so we kind of talked about it a little bit. Is there a song you meant one way and then released and people interpreted completely different, like right off the bat?
That's interesting. I mean, the song that people have been resonating with very deeply lately is Song for Brian. And I wrote that song like it was kind of something where I didn't fully know what it was about when I was writing it. And then it kind of wasn't until afterwards that I understood what I was writing it about. And so now, people will respond and say, like, tell me, like, I've had this experience and this song. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't necessarily what I wrote it about, but that's
Yeah.
cool that, it's helping you with that. It's also funny because, like, people named Brian will reach out and be like, this is so crazy. I'm
Yeah,
going through this and my name is Brian.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a beautiful song, by the way.
Thank
And
you.
oddly enough, a couple of days ago, I talked to Billy Rafool, who like mentioned
Mm,
that song, and I listened to it, and yeah, absolutely beautiful.
yeah.
Um, and
I'm
I
a
mean
big
that
fan of him.
alongside, yeah, he's so talented,
Yeah.
and that alongside, Brooklyn is probably my favorite song by you.
Thank you.
It's another good one. I just enjoy your songwriting in general.
Thank you.
Um,
It means a
so
lot.
uh, yeah, what do you think for you is like what is the most um, challenging part about being an artist?
Hmm. I think it's it can get I think when I feel burnt out, it's from like giving so much of myself. It's not necessarily like the amount of time I'm spending on something. Like I love creating, I love writing, and I love performing. Like I could do that all day, every day, but I think it's almost like a vulnerability burnout, especially online, if you're in release mode and you're promoting songs and talking about what you wrote it about, and even just like putting yourself out there in general of being like, hey, like listen to my song, that can just become exhausting if you don't take the appropriate breaks. So I think that like the self-marketing aspect, especially because so many artists are not like wanting to be the center of
Mm.
attention. It's like we do this because it's just we love music, and we've now just had to become pseudo influencers as well.
Yeah, yeah, I do the pseudo influencer culture for artists is I I get it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
100% get it. Um, so I guess a couple like rapid fire ones. What's like a dream venue for you to play?
I mean, I feel like being from New York, Madison Square Garden is like the ultimate.
Right.
I would say, alternately Troubadour in LA, which I will be playing in June. I'm opening for Donovan Woods, who I know you
Mm.
have
Yeah.
spoken with.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for that because that's been like a dream venue of mine.
Yeah. That feels like the common one. I've yet to be out there, but
Mm,
that's definitely a common one among artists.
yeah.
What about maybe like a dream collab with somebody?
Oh, I think first that comes to mind is Noah Kahn. I love his songwriting, and he also just seems like a really cool person. I'd love to just
Right.
like hang out with him.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be sweet. I won't
Yeah.
lie. What song that you've put out that might not be your most popular, but you're just most proud of?
I think there's a song called This Will Only Hurt for a Minute that I put out, I think, last year. It's on the Alternates Part 2, my last EP, and that one is one that I kind of produced entirely myself, and it was kind of I was very patient with it, with the writing of it. It was like a very long time that it came together, and so I feel like I really poured myself into that, and I'm very proud of how it came out.
Yeah. Yeah, and what about maybe, so obviously I spend a lot of my time as a curator suggesting songs. So I always like
Mm,
to ask an artist, what about a song or an artist that you've just been obsessed with recently?
mm. Um, there's an artist, I don't know if you're familiar with Kevin Garrett.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, I feel like you'd really like his music. He hasn't put anything out in a minute, but I think he's putting out a new album soon. But I just think his writing is incredible and his production is just like very unique. And he wrote Sandcastles by Beyonce, so like
Okay. Yeah.
clearly just like an incredible songwriter.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I feel like I'm waiting for everybody to kind of like tap
To get on
into
the
him.
bandwagon. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I have that feeling a lot with people. Like I could scream about an artist and people are like, okay,
Yeah,
sure,
I
we'll come
know.
around to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess kind of wrapping up, you kind of briefly mentioned it, but what do you got coming up and what are you excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot coming up, especially this summer. So I'm going on tour with Donovan Woods. We'll be playing Denver, Salt Lake City, San Francisco, and LA in June. And um, in August, my EP will drop, and so
Sure.
there'll be a few singles leading up to that. So, yeah, just a lot of new music coming, and excited to be getting on the road and actually playing it in front of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for taking the time to talk with me and
Thank
can't wait to see
you.
what's coming up for you.
Yes.